So today it's all going to be about profit. How do we determine what sort of profit we may be able to make? How do we determine, is it even worth going into that niche? Is there a product that's going to have a margin, or are we just going to lose money from the get-go, which is certainly not what we want to do. So bear with me, guys. I'm just going to pop a screen share on so we can all keep going together.
Awesome. And anyone in this room, you've made a great choice, because this is a sneak peek. We're actually unveiling a new tool. So you're going to have your hands on this. It will go live probably in a week and a half to 2 weeks. You're going to be able to use our profit calculator. It's going to be on the Chrome extension. Really exciting, and you'll see in a second, you're going to have that over-the-shoulder view of just how quick and easy it is to see how profitable something's likely to be.
Absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head there, Kimberly. Quick and easy is what we want. We don't want to be dragging around in spreadsheets for the rest of our lives. I'm sure you've spent hours and hours updating spreadsheets. This new tool is really going to completely change that, which I'm certainly super excited for. I know the rest of ZonGuru is as well. And when that's released in the coming weeks, all you guys are going to get the benefit of that one as well. So like I said, we're going to be talking about product research, but just to take it back a step, what I want you guys to firstly bring to your mind is why you want to sell on Amazon. A lot of you are going to be talking about spending more time with family, quitting your 9-to-5 job. Maybe you want to buy a house, have that Australian dream. Whatever it is, awesome. Hats off to you for making the decision to go after it and get it. But at the end of the day, to do these things as part of your Amazon business, you've got to be making a healthy profit. Okay, we don't want to be going into Amazon and not understanding our numbers. Our numbers are the absolute key to our business. Okay, so let's not be wishy-washy about them. We don't want super rough estimates. We really want to know where our money's going. Are we going to get money back? And how can we reinvest that into something that, once again, is going to turn that cash flow cycle for us? So
yeah, I love that. It's also helpful too, like if you've got a business partner or you're wanting to, you need funding for your business, being able to go to somebody and say, here are my numbers. I've worked the plan. Here's the plan. They then have confidence in what you're doing, rather than going, oh, this kind of looks cool. I like what I'm seeing. Yeah, it might work. Like you've got facts. You've got, that data. So.
Absolutely. And that's what we're looking at today, the facts and the figures, the data that you can really build the foundation of your business from. So, like we spoke about, Amazon sellers, we do spend a lot of time researching products. You're constantly thinking of the next big thing. How can I make more? How can I grow and scale my business? So these numbers are the ones that you've got to understand. So in terms of the numbers, the profit calculator is our new tool. So it's going to be embedded in as part of our Chrome extension. We'll jump into Amazon in a second and I'll show you how that works. But before we do, I just want to have a look at a really interesting niche that I actually came across from Niche Finder recently. So I couldn't think of anything to search. I was in a bit of a rut in terms of creativeness and things. So Niche Finder really got those creative juices flowing again. And I ended up, as you guys can see, on bee suits, which was really interesting. I've never looked at a bee suit in my life. I didn't know much about them. But the first thing that jumped out at me here was the numbers. So let's have a quick look. We'll see what the Chrome extension is telling us about it. And then we'll jump into the profit calculator from there.
Awesome.
So what I want you guys to have a look at first is jump in the chat. I'm just going to quickly scroll through the first page. Let me know which listings are jumping out, why they're jumping out at you. And we'll just see what everyone gets to, because we're all smart people here. I'm sure we'll have fairly similar things.
Oh, there's 2 there already that caught my attention.
Awesome. And why did they catch your attention?
Colors. It's just instantly, there's so much white on the page, and whenever you're selling a product that's white, and obviously with Amazon's terms of service, you need to have that hero shot on a white background, it can be really hard, especially on a mobile device. The image is tiny. Putting someone in with hot pink hair or just making the suit yellow, instantly my eye is drawn there, like without a second look. That's the one I'm going to.
Absolutely. And I'm sure everyone at home is got a very similar way of thinking as well, because you can see obviously the yellow suit, the actual function of the suit is not going to change. You know, you're still wearing a bee suit. It's still going to stop you from getting stung while you're doing that hobby of yours. But it's yellow and it stands out. It's great to see. But the one that I found really interesting was the model that has pink hair. You can see that Kimberly mentioned, because once again, it's not a functional point of the suit. That doesn't change the way the suit works. But because that model has pink hair, your eyes go bang straight to it. Amazon is a very visual marketplace. Humans are very visual beings. So having that bright pink hair, you just go straight to it. You're much more likely to get the click. And if you're more likely to get the click, you've got a good listing, you'll convert, make the sale. And that's what we want to be doing.
So interesting. Just, I know we can only see one line there. I am female. I can see that there's one female on the page. And I would be interested to see, obviously I'm not a beekeeper. I don't know anything about it, who the customer avatar is, who is doing beekeeping. Is it a high proportion of males to females? What's their age group? Where are they hanging out? What are they like? Like, using that information, you could really tailor that image to suit. So maybe it is females aged between maybe 30 and 40 doing beekeeping more often. Put them in the photo. Makes sense. And also, maybe are they white for a reason? Are bees not attracted to white? Again, I know nothing about this niche, but it is a good opportunity for someone to actually do a little bit of research and then come up with a product that is differentiated, that actually solves the pain point of not getting stung.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You've got to find your avatar, really nail in and dial in on who that avatar is, because any female beekeepers who are looking on Amazon, they're going to be naturally drawn to that female hero image, because that's the one that they can relate to. They can see themselves wearing the bee suit. They can see themselves using it and getting enjoyment out of it. So that listing is fantastic. The niche as a whole, though, let's just run over some quick numbers using the Chrome extension. So really strong niche score, 66% here.
Wow.
Backed up cool by the search volume, we're at 17,000. So this is in the US market. So obviously search volume is a lot higher than the other marketplaces, but 17,000 is a huge demand. You know, there's a lot of people searching for this product.
Yeah, and that's just on that keyword phrase. I just ran one for beekeeping suit, and that has over 5,000. So when you combine all these different search volumes, your potential audience could be enormous for such a niche within, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And that's why it really piqued my interest, because I didn't know if I started with beekeeper suit and then realized bee suit had more searches anyway. So, they just kept being keywords that people were using. And so the discoverability was just a huge potential. So with moving on, the price here, this is a really strong price point. It's very hard to try and find gross profit a lot of the time. And as you can see in the bottom right on Alibaba, it's giving us from $18.90, but I did about 3 minutes of research and I found some as low as $12, $13, really good quality from what I could see, very similar to the listings there. So, if you're purchasing at $12 and then you're selling at $90 to $100, you're looking at nearly a 10x improvement on what you can sell your units for as opposed to what you buy it. So it gives you a lot of leeway. You can lower the price if you have to. It just gives you so much flexibility.
That is a huge margin. Huge.
Yeah, it is massive.
Wow. Okay.
Which is super cool. And, a margin like that, there's a reason that the monthly revenue is nearly $20,000. So, if you could get a foot into this niche and get to page one in the top couple of results, you're looking at a pretty healthy business. Of course, you've got to do your due diligence and everything like that. And that's really where the profit calculator is going to come in. Because, of course, this is a high-level overview. So let's dive deeper into some numbers, and we're going to check out whether, this is something that we could actually launch.
I didn't notice this before. I'm getting really excited about this one. The rating count, the average ratings is only 251. That is so low for the US. Anyone who's doing their product research will probably see that number and fall off their chair. If you can be on page one, that is super, super low. There's definitely room to compete here.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have kept this one to yourself.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't shared it now.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'd rather give everyone an idea of, the opportunities that are still there, because I'm sure we all hear that, oh, there's no opportunity, we're too late, why would we start? So
could not be further from the truth. Yeah.
This absolutely blows that out of the water, which is good to see. So I know you've been waiting for the profit calculator team. Let's jump into it. Firstly, how are we going to get to it? So this is just one of the listings that was on page 1 that I've jumped into, quite a strong listing. So the profit calculator, there's going to be 3 ways you can actually open it. Now, your eyes will have been drawn to this widget here. That gives you a very high level overview, your net margin in dollars, and then your net profit in dollars, and your margin as the percentage. You can click on that one to open it up. You've also got up the top here in your extensions, click on ZonGuru, and then once that one loads, you'll have the button in here, profit calculator. You've also got access to it here. Lastly, if you jump into Chrome extension on that listing page, you can't open this from the standard search page. You do need to be in the listing. Next to your sales spy button, it's pretty obvious. It looks like a calculator because that's what it does. Okay, so click on that one. And what I'll do, I'll go into our new tab so we can see what the profit calculator actually looks like. So this is it, alrighty. Now, don't stress, when this is released over the coming weeks, you're not going to have to do anything, all right? The widget's going to pop up on the photo. You'll have it in the Chrome extension up in the top corner as well. You don't need to update. You don't need to uninstall, reinstall. It's just going to be there, okay? We'll put out a lot of educational content. We'll let you guys know when it goes up as well, so you can jump straight in, really hit the ground running because you've been to this webinar as well. All right, so just to give you an idea of what we're working with here, we're going to go through FBA because that's what the majority of us are doing at the moment. In future releases, there will be an FBM as well, but for the moment, we're going to focus FBA. So you can see your top numbers down the bottom here. So you've got the net in dollars, the percentage, your ROI, these sorts of numbers that are very important for your business. But how do we get to these numbers is the most important thing. We've got to know how to increase these numbers, because if we can increase these numbers, we can achieve that goal, that success in Amazon that we're chasing. So we've essentially got 3 umbrella categories, if you like. We've got the product specifications, the cost of goods sold, and the fulfillment costs. So as a whole, all of these costs are what's going to give you these numbers down the bottom. So the first category here is your product specs. Nothing too fancy, not hard to understand this one. This will be automatically populated from the listing you're on as well. So you can see it's pulled in the price there. You've got your dimensions. The cool thing about this is because it pulls the dimensions in, it automatically tells you what size tier or category you're in if you were to sell this product on Amazon. Okay, so what can be super helpful, just a quick tip, is this is a large standard size at the moment. If I was to change this, at the moment it's 15 inches. If I change this, let's just go massive to 50 inches. This one's going to change here. It's going to be small oversize. And then you can see, look at the drop in the ROI. It's a massive drop because we've gone up so many categories. So this is a good way to work out your packaging.
Yeah. And a product like that, I'm just thinking you could get pretty creative on your packaging. It's not breakable. There's no moving parts. You could really pack it down, roll it up. So you could play around with the dimensions, and you might find that that particular seller was only half an inch off the smaller category. Maybe you can use this to really gauge the best way to set your dimensions and work towards that.
Exactly right. So like Kimberly said, if you're only half an inch off that next size tier down, if you're ordering thousands of units, that could save you thousands and thousands of dollars, and those profit margins are going to get healthier and healthier as you go. So in product research, that's what you can be looking for. But even if you're already live, you're selling well, but you just want to squeeze those margins out and reduce your costs, you can jump in here, fiddle with those numbers, what you've currently got, what you want to achieve, and just watch that profit margin grow, which is super, super exciting.
Yeah.
So now that I've changed the information here, it has thrown the numbers out a bit, of course. So up the top, you've got this refresh button. So I'm going to hit that one quickly. What that's going to do is remove any changes I made, and we'll be back to what that listing was showing. Okay, that way you can play around with it as much as you want. You're not going to affect anything. You can always get back to where you were.
Nice.
Of course, your weight here, once again, super important. Similar to the dimensions, it's going to give you the outbound shipping weight. And as we all know, shipping is a massive part of the costs in Amazon. So if you can get this weight down, you're going to save a bunch of money, okay?
I love how granular that is.
It is. It's very detailed. And, I think when the tool was being developed, that's what we were looking at. We were looking at how can we give as much detail as possible in the simplest way so that people can walk away from using the tool saying, I feel confident with my numbers. I'm confident when I'm purchasing. I'm confident with how much stock I want to order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So that's our product specifications category. And next one is costs of goods sold. Alrighty. So what this is going to do, it's going to pre-populate some information here to give you a bit of an idea. But once again, the power of the tool comes into the customization as you input the numbers that suit your business best. Alrighty. So as we change the target units, that's how many units we want to buy. It's going to change our numbers because as a general rule, the more units you buy from a manufacturer, the lower your per unit cost is going to be, and the lower your per unit cost is going to be, the more money you're going to make. So if we're at 500, the manufacturing cost might be $23.99. But say I want to increase this, I think there's a lot more sales velocity, a lot more growth in the market. I might want to order 5,000 units at a time, and that might bring this down, a good $4 or $5 each. Let's just go $18 per unit. Once again, for those that were keeping their eyes down the bottom here, those numbers jumped right up. Okay, so a good tip here is your first order might only be 500, 600 units just to test the market, see how it's looking, see if people are going to buy your product at the right price. That way you can see what your profit margin is going to be for your first order. But then, 6 months, 12 months down the track, when you're really starting to get traction and get established, you're going to be putting larger orders in, bringing your manufacturing costs down, and then that way you can see what your end goal profit margin is going to be. All righty. So, of course, you don't want to lose money on the first few stock orders, but you want to make sure that there's enough room for growth to achieve those profitable profit margins. Cool. Now, moving on, we've got freight type. So for all you researchers out there that aren't aware, there's a lot of different ways you can package things, ship things. You can send them by air, by sea. It is a whole minefield. Of course, you've just got to do your research.
You do. And I'd recommend it because I get this question a lot. I'd recommend having a chat to a freight forwarder. So find that freight forwarder that you're wanting to work with. They will be more than happy to help you out, answer questions. That's where partnering with the right people in your business is going to make a difference. And you could say, hey, I'm thinking about bringing these 500 units in. Is it best to air freight, sea freight? How should I package it up? Start that conversation early so you can then communicate that to your supplier. Get it packaged the right way for them. Does it need to be on pallets or not on pallets? Does it need to have, all these questions? Don't wait until it's ready to be put on the boat. Speak to them early.
Absolutely. And speaking to them early really is the key there. Don't be scared. They're not going to bite your head off. They're looking for business too. They're looking to help you because the more they help you, the more you're going to use them. Alrighty. So once you've had that conversation under the freight type, you'll actually understand what all these weird words mean. And as you change them, that's going to change your freight cost per unit. Once again, the lower the freight cost per unit, the more margin you're going to make. Alrighty. Now, just to explain what's happening in this little section, per cubic meter, we're looking at about $350. Now, of course, this is going to change. So make sure you're looking at current market rates and everything like that so you can pop the most up-to-date, accurate numbers in there. And it's going to do a calculation. So essentially what the freight and units quantity section is saying is per cubic meter for this particular product, based on those product specifications, you can fit 161.6. So round down, you can fit 161 units of these beekeeper suits per cubic meter, which means if you wanted to order these 5,000 units, you're going to need 30 cubic meters. Okay. Can be a little tricky to wrap your head around, but jump in, play around. The main thing you want to be doing is this freight cost per unit. You want to be bringing that low as down as you can.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That's a guide. Speak to the freight forwarder to get the most up-to-date, accurate estimates, because freight changes every 2 weeks. So if you're doing this and then 6 months later you're ready to ship, it will be a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. So speak to your freight forwarder, but also err on the side of caution. Make sure you put a little bit extra on there so you're not stuck out, like Kimberly said, when you get to the port. Moving on, the next section, we've got those duties and tariffs. So I know we don't like paying these. It's kind of like paying tax. You just have to do it, okay? It does change depending on your product category. It changes where you're importing to, where you're importing from, et cetera, et cetera. So we've popped a 7% in here, but similar to shipping, you're really going to have to do your own research depending on the product you're selling, what country you're selling into, just to make sure you're not caught out with the duties and tariffs. Trump in America made things very difficult for a lot of sellers. He put tariffs and duties and things everywhere. Okay, so just make sure you know what applies to your particular product. Pop it in here, put an extra % or two, just to make sure you've got that buffer as well.
Yeah, but it's great. It's making you think of it early on. You're not going, oh, I found a great product. I can buy it for $20, sell it for $100. You're actually going, no, I need to think about my shipping. I need to think about my duties. I need to think about my 3PL fees. It makes you think of all those items that go into your true net profit position.
Absolutely. And, I'm not ashamed to admit it. When I launched my first product, a lot of this I didn't think of. And that's why my first product wasn't successful. The idea was there, but I didn't understand my numbers. So when the tariffs came in and the shipping changed and all this sort of thing, I wasn't ready for it. So the aim of this profit calculator is to get you ready. You know what you've got to pay, so you know if you've got enough margin to launch that product.
Yeah, love it.
The next one is our 3PL storage. So anyone that's already selling on Amazon, I'd probably put a bet that you've either spoken to a 3PL or looking for one or have used one. They're super helpful, really, really good in terms of managing your inventory, making sure you're not overstocked, understocked, all that sort of stuff. But you're not always going to need one. If you do your first product run, you might only have a couple of 100 units. So if you don't need this cost, you can just uncheck the box and it'll take that cost out of the calculator. But if you do have the cost, like most of you will, make sure you put in as accurate as you can. I know it's hard to determine when you launch whether it's going to go gangbusters straight away or whether it's going to be more of a slow burn, but you can work this out. Use the Chrome extension, figure out the sales velocity for those listings on page 1, and that way you can estimate how long your stock will sit in a 3PL before you move it to Amazon, before it's then sold, because obviously the longer it sits around, the more money it's going to cost you. In terms of the fees for the 3PL, similar to the shipping, you can change how it's measured, and that's going to depend how many products you have. Okay, so whether it's per unit, palletized, or per cubic feet, just pop the one, whatever's most relevant to you, and then that'll spit out per unit your cost. And now that we've got all our costs of goods, this is your total COGS per unit. Okay, so remember, this is landed COGS, cost of goods sold. So this is in country, ready to go to Amazon and be sold all over the States or wherever you're selling.
Nice.
One of the most interesting things here is this total investment number. Now it says 105,000 at the moment, and don't freak out. That's because I put 5,000 units in before. So
I was going to say, did you put? I thought it was still on 500 units.
No,
the
500
suit
units.
Suddenly doesn't look so good to me anymore. But okay, that's much better.
So I've changed it back, so it'll go back to the 500 units now, which is the really good feature about the refresh button. Now your total investment is about 14,000, which for some businesses is going to be too much. For others, they want more. For others, it's going to be perfect. So this is a really up to what your business has the capacity to do. Because if you see this number of 14,000 and say my business, I only have 10,000 to invest, I couldn't launch in this niche. I wouldn't have enough money to even get all of the products to Amazon. So this is your total investment before you've even made $1. All right. It gives you a really, really strong idea of if it's something that you can achieve. moving on, our next category is fulfillment costs. So fulfillment, this is what's basically Amazon's fees are. We always talk about Amazon being the best business partner in the world. They're giving us all this traffic and everything. So we pay them for that service and for that partnership. And this is broken down into all the little things that Amazon count as fees. Now, inbound shipping, this one is essentially what's going to happen once you're in country, whether it's coming from the 3PL or the port, someone's got to take it. If you come to Australia, it's probably Australia Post. If you're in the US, FedEx, UPS, all that sort of stuff. Alrighty, pop that number in here. And once again, that will change. So make sure you keep up to date with the market rates. Your estimated months in Amazon storage is quite similar to your 3PL storage. In Amazon, it is going to be a little bit higher. That's why you use a 3PL, so you can save a bit of money there. But once again, Amazon storage is all about velocity. You want to be sending a unit in, and as soon as you can, selling that unit out of the warehouses, because once it's out of the FBA warehouse, you've made your money and you're off to the races. The next one, this is a really interesting one, and it's certainly worth looking into because the referral fee is essentially what category. As you can see, there's lots of different categories on Amazon, and most categories are going to have a different percentage of what Amazon is going to take off you before they pay you out. Okay, so as you can see at the moment, it's on 15%, but as I change, hopefully I can find one that's not.
Yeah, and if you're ever stuck on what category it should be in, if you have a look at the Chrome extension, it will actually tell you what category the current listing is selling in. So I can see that the one you're looking at the moment is in patio, lawn and garden. And that's going to be your guide if you're not sure what category it should be in, because there are situations where you can be in multiple. So you want to choose the one that has the lowest percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this obviously still has to be relevant, but if you have the option between two, you've got to work out the cheaper one. You don't want to be paying a higher percentage to Amazon just because you've been lazy, okay? Don't pay the lazy tax. Put the effort in first. Now, FBA fulfillment fee category. So this is the sort of pick and pack fee that Amazon charges. This one's not as complicated because most products, that's why we have the most products here, are going to fall into a very similar category. Unless you're selling, as you can see, the dangerous goods, batteries, apparel, or apparel with batteries. There's different fees and things related to these. I would probably stay away from them myself, but I know lots of other sellers that have sold in apparel and done, very well. So as long as you're confident and you're aware of the other fees that apply here, that's why the calculator's got it, so you can work it out.
Cool.
Moving on to the next. Now we're looking at the costs involved to get eyeballs on your listing. Okay, so the advertising costs, as a rough estimate, we've popped in 6%. So this one is going to vary a little bit depending on how competitive your niche is. So if you're in a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche that's not very competitive, there's no one else selling or very few sellers with poor listings, terrible photos, all that sort of thing, this number may not be as high. You could drop it a couple of percent. Whereas if you're going into something that's super competitive, you've got a differentiated product, but you're still going to need to spend quite a bit of money on pay-per-click, the PPC advertising. So you may want to bump that up to give you a bit of a buffer, just so you don't end up thinking you're going to be profitable and then that margin being chipped all the way down because you've spent so much on advertising just to get someone to look at your listing.
It's so cool. I just did a quick little sum because I've been watching those figures at the bottom quite closely. If the net profit per sale is $55, if I wanted to have $10,000 in my pocket at the end of the month, I'd only need to sell 6 or 7 a day.
It's pretty enticing, isn't it?
It is. When you put the numbers together like that, it's doable.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we were looking at right at the start in terms of differentiation, create an awesome logo, stick it on, make sure you've got a quality product and stick a model with pink hair in there. You may stand out very easily.
Yeah, I'm wondering too if it's a brand that you could build on. I'm sure there's heaps of other accessories that beekeepers buy. And if you have that brand and then you speak to them through Instagram or Pinterest, wherever they're hanging out, and really create that following. And it's stacking up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head as well, once again, just for a change, hey? With the the hobby side of things. You can create a community because people are going to go to forums, they're going to go to Instagram pages, they're going to create Facebook groups and talk about this. They're going to say, hey, have you tried Adam's beekeeping suit? It's fantastic. Try it out. I wear it every day to do my bees. And then you've got all those accessories as well, and you can really have a strong brand growth.
Yeah, super cool.
The last fee we need to talk about here is our other costs. So we've left this one in here. We've put this one in here so that you can put in any other costs that you want to take into account, because, you know, every business is different. You're never going to have an Amazon business that is identical. Just as an example, some of these costs, you could look at like a PPC agency. If you put something like that in, if you're paying a Xero subscription, pop is on ZonGuru subscription here, so you can take that into account as well. There's lots of different things that you may want to add, and that way you can just choose what percentage that takes. And once again, it'll change these numbers at the bottom, and you'll have a much better understanding of how to move forward and whether you say, yep, I'm going to order this now and I'm going to get into this niche, or look, the margins just aren't there.
They just don't stack up. And you can export this, can't you? So it's not, I'm just looking at the buttons at the top. I think that first button there will take it to Excel for you, which for those of you who do like spreadsheets, and I'm a sucker for a spreadsheet at the end of the day, that would be a great one to save and keep. So if you ever need to refer back to it, maybe you're comparing two different products, you can have a look at that side by side. So very cool.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what the CSV file is for. Upload it to Google Sheets, Excel, something like that. Put two products side by side. You could even put one product with a particular packaging dimension and a particular price and units, put the other one beside it, and see how much, your profit goes up or down depending on those changes as well. Yeah,
great point. Great point. No, that's very cool.
Cool. So everyone, that is the profit calculator. Like we said, we're super excited for it to go live. I'm pushing for it to go as soon as possible. Hopefully we'll see it, or we will see it in the next couple of weeks. And as soon as it does, jump on, get involved, and you'll be able to really start making decisions with confidence.
Yeah, for sure. We had a really quiet room today, but I think we're ready to open it up to Q&A, and the questions don't need to be about the profit calculator. Of course, we'd love that. But really, we want to set this time aside. If you have any questions about Amazon or where you're at in general, feel free to pop them into the chat. I know that we're running on a bit of a 30-second delay, so I'll give it some time. But yeah, we're here to help where we can, and there's probably some, I can recognize some familiar names as well. So I know there's some clever people in the room as well who can probably contribute to whatever you're struggling with. And thank you. So yeah, great question. What's a great search volume for Australia? It seems very low. It seems low because we're comparing it to the US. The US, I always forget the stats. They have 300 and something million people every day shopping on that platform. It's established. It's one of the first places they go when they're ready to buy. In Australia, we're still emerging. We're adopting that. It is growing. The Australian growth has been like nothing they've ever seen. For Australia, anything above 800 is solid. And you might go, that's way too low for me to even consider. But you're playing in a small pond. There might only be 2 or 3 competitors. So you've got to ask yourself, do I want to compete for 800 monthly searches with 2 other competitors, or do I want to compete for 18,000 monthly searches with 700 competitors? So what's going to give you the biggest slice of the pie there? And with Australia, it's getting in early and setting yourself up for that long-term success, because you're going to see that growth as more people adopt. And it's like anyone who started on Amazon in 2008, when did it start? Anyone prior to 2015, I look at their listings and just go, oh my gosh, that first mover's advantage, you can't compete with them. When someone's got ratings in the thousands, it's very hard to jump on from a standing still start and actually compete. So getting into Australia now, you will be that listing that people look to a couple of years from now and go, oh man, I wish I took action, because you're setting up that space. Great question, Greg. This is about stock limits. Everybody's going to have different limits with Amazon depending on, they call it the index performance, it's IPI score, index performance something. It's basically how well you're selling through stock. Are you staying in stock? It's a performance metric that they allocate to your account. The higher that number, the more stock they're going to give you. And you can jump into Seller Central at any time and check on that limit. You'll find that if you haven't launched yet, you're just launching, that limit's going to be pretty low because they don't quite know what you're about. But once you start getting that sales velocity, that history, they'll open that up more. Using a 3PL, the sky's the limit. You've just got to find the right 3PL to work with, but they're definitely a cheaper option. And I'm not sure where you're based. Northern New South Wales. Yeah, if you're based here, Greg, and you're selling in the US, I would highly recommend partnering with the 3PL regardless, because they're going to be your safety net. I've had it before where I sent stock to the US, my supplier put the wrong label on each product. So if you ordered a green, you'd get a blue. If you ordered a blue, you'd get a green. My 3PL was able to take that stock for me and relabel them all. I'm not going to fly over there and do it. Amazon's going to cost me an arm and a leg to do that. My 3PL was able to get in there and do it. So they can offer more than just a storage solution. They're going to tell you if your stock arrives damaged, if it arrives wet, if it's the wrong size or there's something wrong with it. They're going to tell you. They're not just going to send it on to, or they shouldn't just send it on to Amazon, so they can save you a bunch of money. And mine has saved me more times than I can count. And Adam, if I'm just jump in if you see any questions that you like here. A question about what are good numbers for Australia in Niche Finder. Yeah, really great questions here all about Australia. So a Niche Finder, definitely opening it up a little bit more. So what I particularly do there in my strategy in Australia is really finding those products that aren't being sold FBA. And for anyone who doesn't know, FBA means fulfilled by Amazon. Amazon prefers FBA sellers because they make more money from them. They're going to rank them higher. So if you're on Australia and you find a niche that has only a couple of FBA sellers, so maybe if we use that beekeeping suit, maybe there's 2 other people selling on Australia who are using FBA, that to me is a huge tick. Maybe the search volume is around that 800. That's another tick for me. Obviously, you want the demands there. You want to be able to get in early. I'd still look at differentiating and making your product stand out because you want to set yourself up for long-term success. Otherwise, you're just going to have copycat sellers come in once they see how well you're doing. But they're the 2 things that I would look for. And you can adjust those in the Niche Finder advanced mode setting. So make sure you're going to advanced mode. Adjust it so that you can see that there's a small number of FBA sellers with the right demand, and that's going to give you some great ideas. I was looking at some the other day. I'm just trying to remember what they were. There was your home goods was really popular. It was like dish racks, pet products was rated pretty highly. And I like these ones because they're usually non-breakable. They're lightweight. They're easy to ship. No electronics, that sort of thing. So all the basics were definitely ticked off there. But have a play around in advanced mode, looking at FBA and search volume.
Yeah, exactly. But I think with search volume as well, like you mentioned previously, Kimberly, you've got to look at more than one search term. I think sometimes we get too caught up in, we type bee suit and there's only 500 searches. You've got to, and a good way to do this is to use keywords on fire. So run a session and see what other things there are. Like there's going to be words that you've never even heard of. I've got bee suit, beekeeper suit, bee clothes, beekeeper clothing. So they may all have 300 each, but when you add them all up, you're looking at 1,500 to 2,000, and then you've really got some good demand, even though it is that Australian marketplace. It just seems small when you're looking at only a small slice, of the searches that are actually coming through.
So true. So true. Any other questions, guys? I'm glad that you got a sneak peek of the profit calculator today too. And you'll, like Adam said, you'll know as soon as it goes live because you'll have the icon showing on the hero shot. I'm sure you're all itching to get in and get started.
Awesome.
So you're very welcome, firstly. Once we narrow down our products, can we workshop ideas with someone? This is actually really cool because I haven't mentioned this to anyone yet, and I hope I don't get in trouble for, spilling the beans here, but we are going to, in April, be launching one-on-one coaching for anyone in the ZonGuru community that would like it. You can just book a call, half-hour slots when you need them. So as soon as that's released, I can let you know. In the meantime, if you do have questions, you're welcome to reach out to support. Most of us are sellers in the support team, so we do try and guide you to the right areas. When you narrow down your ideas, that's where some people can suffer what's called analysis paralysis. It's like you get so caught up, it's really difficult to pick that one product and move forward. So and this is something I struggle with. I don't know about you, Adam, but I become very emotionally attached to certain products, and I fail to see some of the data points that I should be looking at. So we've got some assets, some resources that you can use that will help cut through that noise. It color codes things for you to really highlight which ones are, the stronger options. So even though you might like option A, option B is the one that's going to deliver the profit. So we can definitely hook you up with those resources. Just jump into support and we can help you with that. It's called the product tracker sheet. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I'm glad you got some value out of it. We get really excited when new tools are released because we are both sellers. We're in I guess that position where we get to play around with things first and try it out. And this is one where we were both like, this is cool. This is going to be a really good addition.
Yeah, this one was definitely exciting. I know you love spreadsheets, Kimberly, but if I could get rid of spreadsheets and have it done automatically, I absolutely would click my fingers and make it happen. So I'm certainly going to spend a lot of time in this one. Just another question we had there. Do we have 3PL services in Australia as well, or just for USA? Great question. We certainly do have them in Australia, but they're a lot harder to find and there's nowhere near as many. So in the US, if you type in 3PL, you are absolutely spoiled for choice. They're all over the place. And they're big companies. Whereas in Australia, because FBA is, so new, it's only been a couple of years now, we don't have heaps of them. So they can be harder to find, but they are there. Kimberly, how did you go finding one in Australia?
Man, I think I called about 40. And a lot, they're set up for those Shopify sellers. They didn't quite understand what an FBA seller was. So I would say, can I store X amount of pallets with you? And then can you send them to Amazon when I need them? A lot got confused and actually thought I was from Amazon. They didn't understand that they wanted cartons shipped. They're used to that individual pick, pack, and ship out. So, which can be frustrating because with some you need to educate them. But I have come across a few really good ones. Try pick, pack. But it would depend on where you're based in Australia as well. So if you're, in Perth, and you probably don't want a 3PL in Queensland. Sometimes it's helpful to have them near where you're shipping into. So a lot of my stock goes into Melbourne. I want my 3PL service down in Victoria. But a little trick there, if you are finding that Amazon's sending you all over the country with your Australian FBA orders, just give them a call and ask for it to be diverted to your closest warehouse, to your 3PL, or if you're storing it in your own home. So, for example, I'm on the Gold Coast. If I was storing my stock here, I could call them up and say, hey, can I send it to the Brisbane shipment place? And they'd help you with that. Although it is a pain, you do have to call them, but it's going to save you a fortune in transport fees. So just a little hack there.
Absolutely. And I suppose as we go along, as the Australian FBA marketplace matures, that demand is going to continue to grow, which means 3PLs, they're going to get better. They're going to get more competitive with pricing. And instead of having to tell them, hey, this is how FBA works, there'll be specific FBA services, just like there are in the States and things. So we've got the advantage of being in there nice and early. Obviously, that comes with challenges, but it also brings the most opportunity as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Australia is a really exciting one. It's just understanding that it is different from the US and understanding the ways it's different, and knowing that, search volume is smaller, but I'm competing with less people, and it's that long-term gain It's not that quick buck that you might see in the US.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Any other questions for anyone in the room? You will get a replay of this afterwards. We're doing something new next week. I believe you're on next week's call too, Adam. I think you've got two in a row.
I am. I'll be back.
Yeah, we're starting something called the Q&A roundtable discussion. And the reason why we wanted to launch that is because, you know, we all have questions. Amazon changes constantly. The Q&A roundtable, and the idea of a roundtable is that we're all coming to the party as equals to learn and share information. It's a chance to get on a call, and we're going to have a couple of people on the call on our end to really help with any questions. And it can be about anything at all levels. I can guarantee there'll be tons of takeaways. Bring the notepad and paper for that one. Same time next week. I can see one last question has come through. How do we go about pasting labels in our boxes? Good process for us. How do we create the labels too? Yeah, labeling is really important. If you get this wrong, Amazon can refuse your goods. So even about where it's placed, it can't be overlapping a corner. It needs to be, I think, testing my memory, but 2 inches from the side, 2 inches from the top. And if you're working with a 3PL, they'll definitely be able to help you with that. But otherwise, when you create your shipping plan with Amazon, they'll give you a sheet of labels, and there'll be a label for each box. You need to make sure that it goes on to the right one, like I said, in the right area. You know, with mine, when I started, I was labeling them myself, and I would cut out the label and I would just, with packing tape, make sure it's stuck on the box the way they want it. You need to make sure that it's very clear and scannable. But they do have a really helpful guide on Amazon about how to do your labeling, how to prep your products. Amazon has rules for everything. So I will see, I'll write your name down, and I'll see if I can email that to you, because it's going to be a really helpful guide. I know I used it religiously when I was doing my own prep, and I'll send it out to you. Awesome. Thanks, Judy. I hope to see you next week. No such thing as too many questions. We love it. We love the interaction. Otherwise, it's boring for us. We just sit here and you know, talk into the void. So yeah, always keep the questions coming.
Kimberly, we've got another one in the Q&A section from Walter. Did you want to have a quick look at that?
Let me open that up. Walter, I hope you don't mind me sharing this publicly. I won't go into the details, obviously, but you're asking about expectations for launching. Yeah, so at launch, everybody has their different strategies, and you're probably getting very confused because everybody, they're very vocal on the right way to do things. Personally, I found the very first launch you do, I usually go in with a smaller minimum order quantity. And even though I've done all my due diligence, I'm confident, you still never know what curveballs you're going to get thrown. So I start with that lower amount, test the market out. And at that stage, I'm looking to break even. So I might be using quite aggressive PPC, pay-per-click advertising on Amazon. I might be running Google ads. I might be running Facebook ads. I could be driving as much traffic there as I can. Once I start that organic ranking and I get that sales velocity happening, that's when I place my big order. That's when I can start to scale things back, and it falls into that nice rhythm. But if you can launch a product with that smaller minimum order quantity, break even, I'd say that's a really strong indicator that you're onto something great, because you'll never spend more on PPC than when you first launch. Amazon is very much pay to play, especially in those niches in the US that have higher search volume, that are more competitive. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question a little bit there.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of how to use the profit calculator as well. Like you were talking about, Walter, just to break even. So see how many units you need to order, what price you need to sell for, how much advertising you need to use to break even. But before you even do your first order, make sure you also put in the profit calculator what you're expecting to do if your brand and product takes off 12 months, 2 years down the track, and make sure you've got enough margin, because there's no point launching, breaking even, and then not having enough, increase in price to make money out of it. You want to make sure you've got the growth and the capacity to have that margin further down the track as well.
Yeah. And something I do with suppliers, because sometimes they can be put off when you go to them with a minimum order that is a lot smaller than what they're used to, is you come to them with the disclosure of, I really believe in this product. I want to order X amount, 3 months from now, but I am going to first test, make sure that my supply chain works, that there's no quality issues, that everything is okay. And then on this date, I'll order this amount with you. And they usually are pretty happy to come to the party at that point. And if you can negotiate what the cost of goods would be for that large order, and then you come back and say, okay, this is the smaller first run I want to do. Maybe there's just a small surcharge that they put on that. Or, rather than just coming to them and saying, oh, I only want 500 units here, that can put them off. Just go, I'm ready to order 2,000 units, but first I just want to test out your quality, the communication, the supply chain. To set those expectations with them, that's going to help drive your costs down. And because Amazon loves that outside traffic as well when you do launch, don't just look at PPC, spread the net wider. So the beekeeping suit's a perfect one. If they're hanging out in certain forums and things, get into the forums, speak to them, drive traffic as many different ways as you can. And there's some really cheap options there. So yeah, other ways to get costs down, get things turning over to a point where you've broken even, you've validated the product, and then you can go in boots and all. Cool. I can hear your dog crying. It might be time to go.
Okay. Yeah, she gets a bit whiny if I don't give her enough attention, so she must be needing attention.
Yeah. Got one last question. If we find a product that is selling well on Facebook Market, Shopify, but not in Amazon, do we venture into that? Also, would you recommend 3PL over FBA for a first timer, even if we pay a little bit more? So a couple of questions in there. Definitely, if you find a product on Facebook or Shopify, but not on Amazon, that's interesting. That's something that you definitely want to dive into. Make sure that, so Amazon's a great space for people who know what they're looking for. So if it's a really obscure product that nobody knows it's there or doesn't know exists, it can be hard because they're not searching for it. So just something to think about there. Obviously, you want to check patents as well. If it's on a Shopify store and nowhere else, maybe that person owns the patent. They've designed it and you can't just copy it. They own it. So that could be another reason why it's not on Amazon, but definitely that's a green light to investigate a lot more. And also with 3PL over FBA, Amazon's never been designed to be your storage space. They love that just-in-time inventory model. They want you to ship your products in and they want it to be sold within a month. That's why they don't charge anything for less than a month. Once you start using them as long-term storage, costs so much money. It really does. So it can be helpful to ship to a 3PL, store your excess stock there, and then drip feed it into Amazon. It actually helps with your rankings as well. They love it when people don't store tons and tons of stock in there. They just want you to drip feed it in. And 3PLs are pretty cost effective when you compare them. If you're running a really, really small first minimum order quantity, maybe it's just a couple of hundred, you could go straight to FBA. Like I said, you want to make sure that you're losing that safety net a little bit as well. You want to make sure that your supplier is really clear on their labeling, that you've packaged everything up to meet Amazon standards. But that's doable. Once you start getting into bigger order quantities, 100% need a 3PL. I've rambled a bit on that one, but hopefully it's helpful.
There's a good answer. There's a lot to go into in terms of 3PLs and things. So, if you've got questions, support at ZonGuru, jump on the live chat. We're always happy to help. We'll do as much as we can to give you the best information because, like you guys are learning as you go along your journey, the more you learn, the more there is that you have to learn as well. Every question opens up another 15. So it's part of the journey and you've just got to lean into the communities and just get as much out of them and give value back as much as you can.
Yeah, nicely said. And hopefully we see you all on the roundtable discussion next week.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Thanks for jumping on today. It looks like all the questions are done. So once again, reach out to ZonGuru, support at ZonGuru if you've got any others, or we haven't answered something you wanted answered today. Apart from that, though, you'll all get the replay, so don't stress. You can watch this one back, and hopefully we'll see you all next week at the round table.
Thanks, Adam. Bye for now.
See you guys.